In New Brunswick, the province conducted an internal review of major issues facing its prison system in March 2008. As is the case in other jurisdictions in Canada, overcrowding driven by a rise in remand populations, a growing number of prisoners with drug addiction and mental health issues, as well as the continued overrepresentation of Aboriginals in its penal institutions, were cited as important challenges facing the province going forward. Previous budget cuts, which resulted in facility closures and the provision of inadequate programming, particularly for female prisoners, and the need to plan for the influx of new prisoners resulting from federal government's tough-on-crime agenda, were also cited as reasons for expanding the capacity of prisons in the province. As part of this plan, the provincial government is currently constructing a new prison in Shediac that will house up to 180 prisoners. The facility is intended to replace the often overcrowded detention center in Moncton, which has a capacity of 58 beds. They're also building the new Dalhousie Correctional Center that will hold up to 100 prisoners and is intended to replace the existing DCC, which has a capacity of 30 prisoners. In Quebec, the provincial government commissioned an independent review of prison population trends from 1992 to 2002 in order to project growth up to the year 2010. The authors of the subsequent 2004 report noted rising remand, tightening of release mechanisms, as well as a conservative penal policy trajectory in the province as primary factors leading to full prison capacity utilization. While projecting future growth should the status quo be preserved, the authors noted that the use of conditional sentencing and other release mechanisms would ease systemic capacity pressure. But presented with alternatives, guess what they did? The provincial government decided to expand its prison system with plans to construct new facilities in the regions of Sept-Îles, Roberval, Montérégie, and Amos that were intended to replace old institutions, as well as reopening a previously closed facility in Palsay, resulting in a capacity increase of 338 prisoners. It is also adding 324 spaces to the system through expansions of 4 existing institutions at an estimated cost of $19 million. In Ontario, the Ministry of Community and Correctional Services conducted a review of its capacity and developed a 15-year requirement plan in 2007. As part of this plan, 2 new detention centers are being established to address overcrowding in aging jails. The Toronto South Detention Centre, a new 1,650-bed facility, projected to cost Ontario taxpayers $1.1 billion over 30 years, is intended to replace the 550-bed Don Jail. The new Southwest Detention Centre, a 315-bed facility which is currently out to tender, is also intended to result in the closure of the 140-bed Windsor Jail. All right. With a surging female prison population driven by a rise in the use of remand, coupled with an aging Portage Correctional Center, a facility considered to be located too far away from Winnipeg, where most prisoners are from, the provincial government in Manitoba launched a public consultation to determine the direction of penal policy for women going forward. The subsequent report, which noted again a lack of programming for female prisoners and culturally specific programming for Aboriginal women within the provincial prison system, proposed a combination of a new prison for women, healing lodges, and transitional housing for criminalized women. And what came out of this report? The government of Manitoba announced that it agreed in principle with the recommendations tabled and that it would build a new 100-bed prison for women in Headingley, a community outside of Winnipeg, to replace the 45-bed Portage Correctional Center. To address overcrowding in male prisons, an addition was made to the Milner Ridge Correctional Center in 2009. In the next fiscal year, there are also planned additions to the Brandon Correctional Center, the Pass Correctional Center, and another 2 additions at the Milner Ridge Correctional Center. In Saskatchewan, a September 2003 architectural review recommended replacing portions of the aging Provincial Correctional Center in Regina due to fire and building code violations, the preponderance of institutional space inconducive to rehabilitation programming, flaws in the units that pose a threat to institutional security, as well as concerns about the conditions of prison expressed by social advocacy groups. In November 2004, the provincial government announced the replacement of the 1913 portion of the institution, which contained 216 beds, with a 216-cell facility, of course double bunked. On August 6, 2008, the new prison, which can hold up to 427 prisoners, officially opened. Weeks after the Regina Provincial Correctional Center became operational, a number of prisoners held in an older unit of the institution had escaped. In response, the province commissioned an independent investigation of the incident. As the prisoners involved avoided staff detection, literally chipped away at a wall in their unit, and eventually broke through into the yard on their way to escape, the report noted that physical structures must be such that efforts put forth by desperate inmates will be thwarted by concrete, steel, and technical devices. After tabling the independent review, the province responded with an action plan in March 2009. A growing prison population, a changing prisoner profile, composed of an increase in remanded and alleged gang-affiliated individuals, the need for security upgrades in its institutions, as well as the need for the system to shift from static security to a dynamic security approach, were all cited as reasons for building a new remand center in Saskatoon, 427 prisoner beds there, located on the grounds of the existing Saskatoon Correctional Center and Saskatoon Urban Camp, pending budget approval. In Alberta, a 10-year capital plan was tabled in 2002-2003. The plan noted that a new facility was needed to replace the Edmonton Remand Center, which could no longer accommodate the rising remand population. As the trend continued and significant growth was projected in the future, resulting in the persistent use of double and triple bunking and related charter challenges, and I quote, at a considerable cost to defend, the provincial government announced in July 2006 that it would construct the new Edmonton Remand Center. It's yet to be decided if the existing 734-bed facility will be closed when the new 1,944-bed facility in Edmonton is opened. All right. In British Columbia, a capacity issue in its prison system, principally driven again by a rise in the remand population, led the provincial government to commission a site evaluation for a prospective institution for sentenced prisoners and another remand facility. This survey, which spanned the Metro Vancouver area, examined and ranked 60 potential facility sites. In 2009, the government-owned Willingdon Land site in Burnaby was identified as the preferred site for a new remand center. However, after considerable community resistance, it was decided that the facility would be built on the grounds of the Surrey Pretrial Services Centre. To address systemic overcrowding, additions to the Kamloops Regional Correctional Centre, the Fraser Regional Correctional Centre, and the Alouette Correctional Centre for Women were opened in fall 2008. Ongoing facility expansions in the province include another addition to the Alouette Correctional Centre for Women and new cells at the Prince George Regional Correctional Centre. In the newly established territory of Nunavut, a number of position papers on the future of its prison system have been produced. And the reason I put the titles of these position papers is look at these names. Choosing a path, moving towards the light. These names are basically indicating that they want to move towards a reform-oriented agenda. Yet the thing that they keep producing is more prisons and more punishment. So in April 2009, this independent report, Choosing a Path Towards More Prisons, was tabled, and it cited a number of challenges moving forward, including an increase in overall population in the territory, which was projected to continue to rise, a lack of culturally relevant programming, overclassification, individuals often being incarcerated a significant distance away from the communities and their families because there are so few facilities in Nunavut. So it's with this in mind that a number of community and prison custody facility options were recommended. As part of the implementation of some of the proposals presented to the territorial government, a new 8-bed facility for women is being constructed in Iqaluit. A new 46-bed facility for men is also in the process of being built in Rankin Inlet. Since at least February 2003, officials from the Department of Justice in the Northwest Territories have been recommending to the territorial government that the existing 18-bed Territorial Women's Correctional Center in Fort Smith be replaced. In the last decade, it's been noted that the facility does not have adequate programming and administrative space. It's an aging building that does not suit the needs of the correctional service. It's not a secure facility. At this time, a new 45 to 50 bed facility for women is being considered. So from 18 beds to 50. In the Yukon, an independent report produced by an architectural and planning firm in 1995 noted that the White Horse Correctional Center was in violation of earthquake resistance and fire safety code violations that in the event of an emergency would likely contribute to the loss of life amongst staff and prisoners. As such, the authors of the report recommended that future options, therefore, should not consider the continuation of this facility, but must look towards its replacement as soon as practicable. Despite the indictment against the conditions of the 85-bed White Horse Correctional Center, plans for the replacement of the facility did not fully materialize until the corrections consultation that began in November 2004 and ended in March 2006, which involved 160 meetings in communities across the territory and recommended that the institution be replaced as part of broader systemic reform. The new 172-bed facility, which also contains a transitional women's living unit, was deemed necessary by a broad group of stakeholders because of the territory's changing prisoner population, composed of an increasing number of individuals with mental health and drug addiction issues, that they felt could best be addressed in a multi-level facility with programming that supports offender accountability, motivation, rehabilitation, and healing.